This is Mystery Port Chronicles. I am Nathaniel Aldridge, a man who watches, listens, and writes down the truth. Here, in the fog and lamplight of the harbor, every detail speaks. Evelyn Hart records the case files. I follow the clues. And together, we bring light to places built on shadows. Let us begin. There's a particular silence that follows great music. Not emptiness, but fullness, a moment when sound becomes memory. That Thursday evening at the Grand Harbor Theater, the silence was different. It tasted of dread. The premiere of Requiem for the Tides had drawn every notable figure in port society. The theater glittered with gaslight and jewels, its red velvet seats filled with anticipation. Maestro Victor Ashbourne stood at the podium, his silver hair catching the stage lights, his baton poised like a sword about to strike. The orchestra held their breath. He raised his arms. The first note bloomed, deep, resonant, a cello speaking of ancient depths. What followed was magnificent. Violins wove through darkness like moonlight on water. Brass swelled like storm clouds. The timpani rolled like thunder across the harbor. For 43 minutes, the music built toward its crescendo. I watched from the balcony, Evelyn beside me, both of us swept into the tide of sound. And then, at precisely 9:47, as the final chord struck with the force of a breaking wave, Victor Ashbourne collapsed. His baton clattered to the floor. The music died mid-breath. Someone screamed. By the time I reached the stage, the maestro lay motionless, his eyes staring at the ornate ceiling as if still conducting angels. Dr. Emmett Cross, the theater's resident physician, was already beside him. "He's gone," Cross said quietly. "Cardiac arrest by the look of it." But something troubled me. The maestro's face was twisted not in pain, but in surprise, as if death had come from an unexpected direction. Evelyn appeared at my side, her notebook already open. "Natural causes?" she asked softly. I knelt beside the body, examining carefully. No visible wounds, no signs of poison on his lips, no struggle. But then I noticed his ears. Tiny traces of blood, barely visible. "Dr. Cross, check his eardrums." The physician looked puzzled but complied, using his ophthalmoscope with a specialized mirror. His expression changed. "Good God, they're ruptured, both of them." Evelyn wrote quickly. "How?" she asked. I looked at the orchestra, still frozen in their seats, instruments clutched in trembling hands. "Sound," I said. "Someone killed him with sound." The theater manager, a nervous man named Herbert Finch, gathered the orchestra in the rehearsal hall while the authorities secured the main stage. 23 musicians sat in stunned silence. 23 potential murderers. I studied them carefully. Adrian Blackwood, first violinist, mid-30s, handsome and aware of it. He sat with his Stradivarius across his lap, fingers still trembling slightly. He had been positioned closest to the maestro. Isabella Crane, principal soprano, early 40s, elegant despite the shock. She hadn't performed tonight, but had been in the wings, waiting for the encore that never came. Leopold Hartmann, composer of the Requiem, late 50s, German accent, thick spectacles. He clutched the master score like a lifeline. Samuel Whitmore, principal oboist, 60s, with the weathered look of a career musician. He seemed more angry than shocked. Thomas Ashbourne, the maestro's son, late 20s, playing second violin. His face was blank, unreadable. Others filled the ranks, cellists, brass players, percussionists, each with their own relationship to the deceased. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, "I know this is difficult, but Maestro Ashbourne did not die of natural causes." Gasps rippled through the room. "Someone in this orchestra," I continued, "modified their part to create a frequency capable of stopping a human heart." Isabella Crane stood, her voice sharp. "That's impossible. We played from the score, the same score we've rehearsed for weeks." "Then may I see your sheet music?" Evelyn asked gently. One by one, the musicians surrendered their parts. Evelyn and I examined them by lamplight. Standard musical notation, penciled fingerings, occasional dynamic markings. Nothing unusual, until I held one page to the light at a particular angle. Faint scratches, almost invisible. Additional notes hidden in the texture of the paper itself. Notes that shouldn't exist. Dr. Cross met us in his study adjacent to the theater, medical texts stacked around him. "You asked about acoustic weapons," he said, pushing a journal across the desk. "It's theoretically possible." I read carefully. "The human heart operates at a specific rhythm," Cross explained, "approximately 60 to 100 beats per minute, but it's also susceptible to external frequencies." "Resonance," Evelyn said, her artistic background serving her well. "Precisely. If you could generate a sound at the exact frequency of someone's cardiac rhythm and sustain it with enough amplitude, you could stop their heart," I finished. "The maestro had a documented arrhythmia, his heartbeat at an irregular 73 beats per minute. Anyone who knew this could theoretically target him specifically." "Who would have known?" I asked. "His physician, his family, perhaps close colleagues who noticed his condition during rehearsals." I thought of Thomas Ashbourne's blank face, of Adrian Blackwood's trembling fingers, of Isabella Crane's defensive posture. "Dr. Cross," Evelyn asked, "how would someone create such a frequency?" "Through layered harmonics, multiple instruments playing specific intervals that combine to create the deadly resonance. No single musician would even realize what they were playing. Except," I said, "the person who wrote those hidden notes." Adrian Blackwood's dressing room was a shrine to vanity. Mirrors reflected mirrors. His violin case was lined with silk. Concert programs featuring his face covered one wall. He sat before his mirror, still in evening dress, methodically tuning his instrument. "Mr. Blackwood," I said, "you were seated closest to the maestro." "First violin always is." "You also applied for the conductor's position 3 times. He rejected you each time." His bow paused mid-stroke. "Victor believed I lacked depth, said I played with technical perfection but no soul." That must have been frustrating. It was infuriating. He set down the violin. "I'm twice the musician he ever was, but he couldn't see past his own ego." "Angry enough to kill him?" Evelyn asked. Blackwood laughed bitterly. "If I wanted him dead, I'd have challenged him to a duel of performances, let the audience decide who deserved the podium." "Someone modified the score," I said, "added notes specifically designed to create a lethal frequency." His expression changed, genuine surprise. That's brilliant. Horrible, but brilliant." "The modifications were primarily in the first violin part." He stood abruptly. "Then check my score, every note. I have nothing to hide." We did. His part was clean. But something in his reaction troubled me. He had called the method brilliant before expressing horror, the appreciation of an artist, or an accomplice. Isabella Crane received us in her private salon above the theater, a room that smelled of roses and old perfume. She had changed into a silk dressing gown, her stage makeup removed, revealing a face more careworn than her performance persona suggested. Maestro Ashbourne and I were close once, she said, pouring tea neither of us wanted. Years ago, before his marriage. And after his marriage? I asked. He chose his career. I chose mine. We remained professional. You were waiting in the wings tonight, Evelyn observed, for an encore that was never scheduled. Isabella's hand stilled. I wanted to speak with him, privately, after the performance. About what? She drew a letter from her pocket, expensive paper, sealed with red wax. I received this 3 days ago, anonymous. It claimed Victor had stolen the composition for tonight's Requiem. I took the letter carefully. The handwriting was educated, precise. The Requiem for the Tides was not composed by Leopold Hartmann. It was stolen from a dead man's work. Confront Ashbourne, or I will expose him publicly. Did you confront him? I asked. I tried. He refused to see me, said I was being manipulated. Were you? Her eyes met mine, dark with old pain. Victor destroyed many things in his pursuit of perfection, relationships, rival musicians, even his own son's confidence. But I never knew him to steal. Until now. She nodded slowly. If someone wanted to ruin him, Sonia said softly, they succeeded, but they didn't stop at reputation. No, I agreed, they stopped his heart. Leopold Hartmann's workspace was chaos incarnate. Sheet music covered every surface, pinned to walls, scattered across the floor, stacked on the piano until the instrument groaned under the weight of creation. The composer himself sat at the keyboard, playing a melancholy phrase over and over, as if seeking something lost. He didn't acknowledge our entrance. Herr Hartmann, I said, we need to discuss the Requiem. His fingers continued moving. It is my masterpiece. Was my masterpiece. Now it is a grave marker. There are questions about its origin. The music stopped. He turned slowly, his face haggard behind thick spectacles. You have heard the rumors. We've heard an accusation, Evelyn said gently, that you stole the composition. Stole? No. Inherited, perhaps. He stood, moving to a locked drawer, producing a key from a chain around his neck. Inside lay a manuscript, old, yellowed, written in a different hand. This belonged to my student, Marcus Webb, brilliant young composer. He died 2 years ago, consumption. And this is his work? I asked. The foundation of it, the themes, the skeletal structure. But the orchestration, the development, the final form, that was my contribution. Did Maestro Ashbourne know? Of course. Victor and I discussed it extensively. He approved, said Marcus would have wanted his music to live, even if his name did not. Then who sent the accusation? Wondered Evelyn. Hartmann's expression darkened. Someone who wishes to destroy what Marcus and I built together. Someone who believes art belongs to one person, rather than flowing between souls. He returned to the piano, playing that melancholy phrase again. I have been thinking, he said quietly. Those hidden notes you discovered, they follow a pattern I recognize. What pattern? Marcus Webb's signature technique, a mathematical relationship between harmonics. He was obsessed with the physics of sound. My pulse quickened. Could he have written them? No, Marcus is dead, but someone who studied his work, someone who understood his theories. Who? I pressed. Hartman's fingers struck a dissonant chord. His sister, Olivia Webb. She blamed Victor for her brother's death, said the pressure of the commission hastened his decline. We found Olivia Webb in the theater's archive, a forgotten room beneath the stage where old scores and programs gathered dust. She was young, perhaps 25, with ink-stained fingers and her brother's eyes. She didn't look up when we entered. "I wondered when you'd find me," she said, still sorting through manuscripts. "I wondered if anyone would be clever enough." "Miss Webb," Evelyn said gently, "we know about your brother." "Do you? Do you know how Victor Ashbourne worked him until his lungs bled? How he demanded revision after revision, never satisfied, always pushing?" She finally looked at us. "Marcus died finishing that Requiem. He gave Victor everything, and Victor took the credit." "Herr Hartmann says he contributed significantly," I observed. "Leopold is a kind man, too kind. He softened the theft with collaboration." "So you decided to punish the maestro?" "I decided," she replied calmly, "to make him perform the very work that killed my brother, and to ensure it killed him in return." Evelyn's pencil paused. "You added the hidden notes." "I added justice. Marcus discovered those frequencies years ago, wrote about them in his journals, the mathematics of resonance, the vulnerability of the human heart to harmonic convergence." She pulled a leather journal from her satchel. "Every calculation is here, every frequency. I simply translated them into musical notation and etched them into the orchestra's parts." "How?" I asked. "I'm the theater's librarian. I prepare all the sheet music. No one questions my work." She smiled without warmth. 23 musicians playing 23 modified parts, each contributing a single frequency, alone meaningless, together lethal. "But you killed an innocent man," Evelyn said. "Innocent?" Her voice rose. "He stole my brother's final work. He worked Marcus to death. He—" Her voice broke. "He deserved to hear what he had done, to feel it, to die in the music Marcus created." Thomas Ashbourne was precisely where I expected to find him, at his father's podium. He stood on the empty stage, holding the fallen baton, conducting silence. "I knew," he said without turning, "weeks ago. I saw Olivia working late, saw the patterns she was adding." "Why didn't you stop her?" I asked. "Because part of me wanted it to happen." He finally faced us, and I saw the resemblance to his father, and the differences. "You have no idea what it's like, being the son of greatness, living in the shadow of perfection. Every note I play is compared to his legacy, every performance measured against his standard." "He was hard on you," Evelyn said softly. "He was impossible. Nothing was ever good enough. When I auditioned for first violin, he placed me in second chair, said I needed to earn my place." "Earned? I'm his son." "But you loved him," I observed. Thomas's expression crumbled. "I hated him, and I loved him, and I wanted him to see me, just once, not as the son who disappointed him, but as the musician I actually am." He looked at the baton in his hand. "When I realized what Olivia was doing, I could have warned him, could have stopped the performance. Instead, I played my part perfectly, added my frequency to the symphony of his death." That makes you complicit, I said. I know, but at least, in the end, he heard me, really heard me, even if he didn't know it. The evidence was overwhelming. Olivia Webb had designed the weapon. Thomas Ashbourne had allowed it to be used. 21 other musicians had unwittingly played their parts. But something still troubled me. Back in the archive, I studied Marcus Webb's journal by lamplight. The mathematics were elegant, precise, but incomplete. "Evelyn," I said, "these calculations show how to create a lethal frequency, but they don't show how to target it." "What do you mean?" "Every heart beats differently. To kill a specific person, you need to know their exact cardiac rhythm, not just generally, but precisely." I turned pages. Marcus Webb never met Victor Ashbourne. He died before the commission was finalized. So how did Olivia know the maestro's heart rate? Olivia's eyes widened. Someone told her. We found Dr. Emmett Cross in his study, burning papers. "Doctor," I said quietly, "those wouldn't happen to be medical records, would they?" He stopped, ash falling from his trembling hands. "I loved him," Cross whispered. "Victor. For 20 years I loved him, tended his health, monitored his arrhythmia, kept his secrets." "And when he rejected you?" Evelyn asked gently. "He didn't reject me. He never acknowledged me. I was useful, necessary, but invisible." He sank into his chair. "Olivia came to me 3 months ago, asked about Victor's condition. I thought she was concerned, a fellow musician checking on a colleague." "You gave her his cardiac measurements." "I gave her everything, his resting heart rate, his stress patterns, the exact frequency that would resonate with his arrhythmia." He looked up, tears streaming. "I didn't know what she planned, I swear it. I thought she wanted to understand him, the way I did." "But you suspected when he died. You knew immediately it wasn't natural." "Yes." "And you said nothing?" "Because," Cross said brokenly, "part of me was glad that if I couldn't have him, no one would. Glad that his final performance would be his last. Glad that he finally felt something, even if it was death." The arrests happened quietly. No drama, no spectacle, just justice, measured and certain. Here's what followed. Olivia Webb, charged with murder through malicious design, sentenced to life imprisonment, spent her days teaching music to other inmates, finding redemption in passing on what her brother loved. Dr. Emmett Cross, charged as accessory to murder, sentenced to 15 years, lost his medical license, wrote a treatise on the ethics of confidentiality that became standard medical reading. Thomas Ashbourne, charged with conspiracy through inaction, sentenced to 10 years, reduced to 5 for cooperation. Upon release, became a music teacher for underprivileged children. Never performed publicly again. The 21 musicians, cleared of all charges. Several left the orchestra, unable to reconcile their unwitting participation. 3 took their own lives within a year. Leopold Hartmann retired from composition, published Marcus Webb's complete works under the young composer's name. The Requiem for the Tides was never performed again. On the pier at dawn, Evelyn closed her notebook. "Another case finished," she said softly. "I watched the morning sun break across the harbor, thinking of sound and silence. No, I replied. "Another demonstration that the most beautiful things can hide the darkest intentions. Art and murder, each requiring precision, passion, and the willingness to see a vision through to its final note." She looked at me with those steady, understanding eyes. "Do you think Victor Ashbourne heard it in that last moment? Did he understand what was happening?" "I think," I said carefully, "that he heard music more pure than anything he'd ever conducted, the mathematics of mortality, the symphony of his own heartbeat stopping." That's almost poetic. That's almost justice. As we walked back toward our small office near the docks, Evelyn penned the final line. "Case file 008, resolved. But in the fog of Mystery Port, another lantern always waits to be lit."